So I thought what I would do is perhaps introduce a little bit about what I'm going to talk about, so then we'll eat our entrees, and then I'll come back up. Sound good? Save a little bit of time for everybody, too. Also, as you get that insulin increase and drop and everything else, and you start falling asleep 40 minutes from now, we might alleviate some of that. So, you know, I'm a top-of-the-table producer. I work with clients every single day. I happen to be sitting at a table with Linda, who's brand new. May or may not take this as a career, may or may not join in the future, but interested in what we do every single day. And I was telling her about the broad diversity of people and things that we can do in our industry. And then I'm also sitting across from me is George, and George has been in the business probably a couple of years, as you know. And so it's really great to be here and just speak to a very, very diverse audience of people who have also diverse backgrounds and interests. I hope I can teach you a few things. So I'm a multi-line agent. I started as a pure life insurance agent, bought a very small family-owned agency with about 800 clients. It now has 5,000 clients. About 1,000 of those are businesses. You know, I first came into the business, I wanted to make $100,000 a year. I turned down a job with IBM in 1983 when I graduated from college at the glorious sum of $30,000 a year and the kind of sex appeal of going into their management training, sales training program in London. I turned that down because the first week in insurance sales in September of 1983, I made $1,000. And my friends were making $400 and $500 and $600, and I just thought it was unbelievable to be able to have that opportunity. And I did well from that point on, and I want to talk to you about some of the things that I've done that may or may not be different. But at the time, I wanted to make $100,000 a year, and years later, I wanted to make $100,000 a quarter, and years later, I wanted my practice to generate $100,000 a month, and now I'm shooting for $100,000 a week. I don't think I can ever get to $100,000 a day before I retire, which will probably be, or when I slow down a little bit in about 10 or 12 years. But the fact is that my practice now generates about $270,000 of commissions per month. And you're going to want to know how I do that and why I do it. It's a lot of meat and potatoes, but it's my practice. I'm not a general agent. I don't have, all of my people are salaried people. If we don't make a sale, they don't make a sale. If our team doesn't make a sale, they still get paid. Of course, there are bonuses and things like that. We're going to talk about some of those things running your practice. I'm going to talk about your capacity to build your own practice. What are some of the things that are stopping you operating your practice, collaborating with others, some marketing and sales ideas, a 90-day action plan when you leave. And I'll finish up with a few words about NAIFA and how it's been important to me, because that's really the only reason I'm here. I get a couple $1,000s for a 2-hour presentation. That's when I'm just being very generous and like the city I'm going to. Of course, it's great to come to Las Vegas, but normally this is a kind of fly-in, fly-out thing, and the only reason I would ever do it for the price of a plane ticket, which is what you guys were on the hook for, is because of NAIFA, and because I believe so strongly in what you do every day and your membership in NAIFA and how it really protects our business, because I believe no NAIFA, no industry. I'll be talking very fast, so please take notes, and we'll do a Q&A at the end. So, with that said, enjoy your entrees, and I'll be back up in a little bit. The National Press Club in Washington has a luncheon, I don't know, every single week, and it's on, like, you know, public radio or whatever. And you'll hear the plates and glasses and silverware clinking in the background. So if they can do that, certainly you can with me. Talked a little bit about, you know, where I came from and how I was brought kind of up in this business and things like that. And I will tell you that to begin with, I think that your life is a product of three things. The people you hang around with. The people you hang around with. The things you focus on most, and the decisions that you make. And, you know, I'm one of these people who stands in front of you as having made some doozy mistakes. You know, some people stand in front of you and they're the hero of their own story. If anything, I am a model of making big mistakes and somehow coming out on the other side. As an author recently said a couple of years ago, failing forward. You know, I've learned from my mistakes and I've kind of stumbled forward. And that's a hopeful message because I am clearly not the best looking person in the room, clearly not the smartest person in the room, clearly not the most articulate. I clearly don't have the technical skills that many of you have. But I think on balance, I may have, on balance, certain personality traits which have allowed me to overcome some of the obstacles that were oftentimes created by myself. And I would suggest to you that the biggest obstacles in your lives, any of you, are probably created by yourselves in your own mind. They're not even real. They're just things that you kind of make. They're just phantoms. So it takes a little courage to try to admit that you have the power to change your own life and to try to figure out what's stopping you. You know, I like to talk about this subject of capacity. Your capacity to sell, your capacity to produce an income, your capacity to grow, your capacity to be effective with your clients. You know, how can you take that next beachhead? And I think people get way too tied to their results, and not that results aren't important. But if that's all you think about every second, then you get tied to people saying no to you. You get tied to negativity. And so what I want to talk to you again today, a little bit of a hopeful message, is that make that beachhead not making the sale. Rather, make that beachhead the fact that you're going to have what it takes to make that next phone call or to ask for that referral, regardless of what the outcome is. And if you conquer that beachhead, I promise you, you will make more sales. You will get more referrals. And so that's really the context of everything we're going to talk about here. You know, having a clarity of vision where you want to be, where you want to go. Every single year, I write down one really big goal and a bunch of other smaller goals. And, you know, the smaller goals, as you can imagine, are kind of things like income, and a bigger goal might be, you know, getting a new office building or hiring, say, a person in my company like a marketing director, which I didn't have until recently, who's kind of taken all those things off my shoulders. But beginning with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey says, is so key because you decide where you want to go, create a written goal, and then automatically everything, your subconscious, your intellect starts working to you, and the people around you starts working for you to make those things happen. So you begin with the end in mind, kind of set up that path that you're going to go. It's not always straight, and then just start stepping forward. You know, you can create the world around you. It's entirely up to you. If you believe it, you'll see it, I promise you. So let's talk a little bit about operating your practice. I know that people say that your clients and prospects don't care what you know until they know that you care. And we're going to talk a little bit about rapport building and relationships in a little bit, but I will tell you that your competency is more important today than ever before. And it's not simply your competency of knowing technical details about tax or, I was talking to Greg. Greg is in the captive insurance market, prospecting for very large life insurance in a very different market that most of us operate in. And I can promise you, they don't give a darn if he cares about them or not. It is very much about competency in the tax arena, competency in writing the underlying plan documents and things like that. Wouldn't you agree? So if you need to step forward, it's great that you care about people, but I promise you, you've got to understand for your own E&O and to build those relationships, you've got to be competent in what you do. Now, don't let that hold you back. Don't let that hold you back. And I'm going to tell you how you can, when we do this 90-day action plan, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But competency is extremely important. Processes and protocols in your agency are extremely important. They are actually the key to how effectively you can help people. So you need to create some type of a process or protocol that gets you around every single obstacle that's in your way. So, you know, having written goals and benchmarks are key. Create the processes and protocols that will help you accomplish those things. I think you all know about benchmarking. You can benchmark against other people. LIMRA has amazing statistics about effective advisors and what they do. You can benchmark yourself against them. It's very, very important. Track your metrics. Track your metrics. A few years ago, a company came in and they said, you know, what's your conversion ratio? And I said, my conversion ratio? Yeah, on people that you market to, what's your conversion ratio of the people that come in and talk to you that you actually make into clients? And what's the timetable on that conversion ratio? You know, how long does it take to close? You know, I didn't have any idea. I was just fat, dumb, and happy. Yeah, I make a lot of sales. I don't know. Well, ever since we started kind of tracking those metrics, we've gotten just that little bit better, and it's produced about $300,000 more in commission revenue last year alone. Just that little bit, that little tweak to grow your practice 6, 7, 8%. Now that's going to compound in the future, but track your metrics. It's very important because, you know, you've heard inspect what you expect. Well, the reason why inspect what you expect is so important is because people only respect what you inspect and measure. Your staff, the people around you, will only respect what you inspect and measure. And tell them why it's important. Understand yourself why it's important. Quality control in your practice. Small things matter, and it's everything from spelling people's names right, understanding who their spouse and what their spouse's names are. It's a lot of little things. And, you know, it amazes me, and you've heard this before, that people never have time to do it right the first time, but they always find the time to fix it later. And so small things matter. Competency, effectiveness, they're all going hand in hand. Eliminate the friction points in your practice. A lot of people will tell you to work harder. And I can tell you the problem that you have is that you really probably don't need to work harder. If you've read a lot of leadership books, you know that there are kind of forces that are upwelling forces. They're the positive things. But holding those things down are restraining forces. It could be negative people on your staff. It could be your own lack of competency in an area or a skill set that you don't possess. It could be a variety of those things. It could be the company that you, in the marketplace that you're working in, the companies that you represent might not be good in that marketplace. You might sell DI to doctors. If your company isn't one of those 3 or 4 carriers that's extremely good at selling DI to doctors, that's a restraining force. So no matter how hard you push up and work harder, you're far more successful if you just alleviate that restraining force. Do you understand what I mean? Allow what's already there to move higher by just reducing some of the restraining force and alleviating that downward pressure on the things that are trying to move you forward. You can ask me any questions about that later. And then there are friction points. There are friction points in your practice that we all see. Sometimes it's motivated by human beings, and other times it's just systems. You know, but doing things 2 or 3 times, or knowing that every time you get to underwriting or with a paramedical firm or something, there's always a friction point. You need to look at some way to grease those wheels because you don't have time for that. You know, it's not what you get paid to do. You need to have effective and simple systems for recording and capturing data and information. And then you need to be able to recapture that information, make sure that it's backed up somewhere, probably to some cloud nowadays, somewhere else. But you need to be able to get that information back. I can tell you that, you know, immediate recording of things in real time is important. So, you know, taking notes is extremely important with your clients at meetings like this, and then having a way to access those notes later. So for instance, in things like this, what I tell a lot of people is have a sales journal. Just have a sales idea journal, how to build your practice. And just keep that on a shelf, and every time you come to a meeting like this, have that one journal available. And then every time you're with a client or before a big meeting or once a month, look at that journal for good ideas. Highlight it. You know, make that thing so it's dog-eared. Or record stuff on your iPad. Email, if you see some good ideas today, open up your smartphone, write all the ideas into an email to yourself and send it to yourself. And you'll have it tomorrow or this afternoon when you get back to your desk. Again, keeping a journal, there's nothing wrong with that. I still keep a journal for some things because I like to handwrite out certain ideas. Niche and target marketing is important. You know, where I'm from in Western Massachusetts, we have about 1 million people in probably within about a 50-mile radius. It is not a very populated part of New England. I'm about 70 miles west of Boston and about 25 miles north of Hartford, Connecticut. I'm in an area that is very depressed. Springfield, Massachusetts is about the 100th largest community in the United States, and it's probably, you know, way down the list in terms of relative affluence. So it's a good place to live. We all work harder to make it better, but it's a crime-ridden city that is struggling with an emerging population that's very diverse, struggling with difficulties in its school systems. So I do not come from you know, a big affluent area. So niche marketing for me is very difficult. We don't have, for instance, you know, 200 biotech companies like they do out in Boston, where they might have 3,000 or 4,000 companies like that. I can't niche market to, say, pharmaceutical engineers. We might have 10. And so as a result, you know, it's very, very difficult for us to niche market. So what we'll try to do is affinity market with people who are similar, professionals, doctors, lawyers, bankers, or people who have a similar bent. For instance, small business owners. They all pretty much think the same. They're trying to get as much out of the business as they can. They're trying to put their kids through school. They're trying to, you know, deal with all the problems with their employees. And so what the goal of my practice has always been is to go to those people and figure out what their problems are, and then study a potential solution, and then figure out the best way to solve those problems. And usually there's something that has to do with life insurance, disability insurance, something the employee benefit arena, but it also might be other things that we take to those firms. Leadership development training. I do a seminar in leadership development training for small companies, for family-owned businesses. It's something that I learned how to do. Being in a family-owned business and having my brother as a partner for a number of years forced me to kind of learn all the dynamics about running and transferring a family business. Very, very important stuff. You all learn things like that every day. Are you offering it to your clients, or are you just offering them insurance? Ask yourself those questions. But you have people that you know that are in the medical profession, banking, other allied insurance professionals, investment people, lawyers, doctors, what have you, engineers. A lot of those people in your network can help other people in your network. What are you doing to bring them together? What are you doing to bring them together? So think about that. In the property casualty side of my business, that multi-line side, you know, we have the same issue with niche marketing. I mean, there's a lot of gas stations, funeral homes, and things like that. That's what my brother did, by the way. He was my business partner for 15 years, and then he left and he bought 3 funeral homes because insurance wasn't exciting enough, I guess. So, you know, I just kind of segued into this idea of collaboration and partnering with other people. So let me ask you something. You know, what do you get paid to do? You heard that story about Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra said, you know, when I go to a place, I get paid to go up on that stage and sing. I don't get paid to be a roadie. I don't get paid to pack up the musical instruments or to sweep the floor afterward. I get paid to sing. And I want you all to ask yourselves today, what do you get paid to do? And what things are you doing now that you're not getting paid to do, or certainly getting way overpaid to do? Those things need to be on a not-to-do list. You need to find somebody else. A lot of people say, well, that's easy for you to say. You have, you know, 20 staff members and things like that. In the beginning, it was me. It was me. I had my father and uncle. We were in a room about as big as one of these booths. And, you know, now I own a big office building and everything. But it was an evolution. And what I did is I had a couple of other people that weren't in my office, and we went out and hired together somebody for about $8 an hour back then to do a lot of the things that we were doing. So they would come to my office, for instance, once a week and do all the filing, or maybe bookkeeping. That way I didn't have to do that stuff. So maybe it cost me $100 a week. We all can afford something, we just choose not to. But I promise you, you all can afford that type of support. Doesn't it make sense anyways to just kind of pay the least to get the job done effectively? I mean, it's got to be done the right way, no doubt. But shouldn't you be paying the least to do that? If you're paying yourself to do it, you're probably paying the most, because it's not what you get paid to do. You get paid to go and engage people in a conversation about subjects that are difficult to them, but very important. Their children, their retirement, maybe their parents, for those of us in the sandwich generation, their business, their employees, all those different things. Their own dignity, if they were to get disabled. That's what you get paid to do. You get paid to be belly to belly with those people, or fighting to get belly to belly with those people. Nothing else. And that's also why you get paid so much, because it's hard work, and I know that. And because it is hard work, surround your people who give you buoyancy. It's the most important thing. You know, I've had to jettison people from my practice, and guess what? They're all still clients. There's like 20 of them, 30 of them, and their families. They're all still clients. I just said, you're not happy here. Let me help you find a place where you can be happy. I had a manager of my agency 3 years ago I was paying her $100,000 a year. And we were in my office one day, and it was like a train just hit me. And I looked at her and I said, oh my God, Chris, you can't work here anymore. And she stopped cold turkey and said, what do you mean? And I said, we can't work together anymore. We have to find a way to make you happy somewhere else because you're miserable here. And I don't know what's taken me so long, but it just hit me right between the eyes. And she stood up and we embraced and she was crying and everything else. And she came in the next day and I spent 6 months with her helping her create a consulting firm. She's now making $250,000 a year consulting property casualty agencies on their kind of internal operations, you know, computer systems, things like that. I get things from her all the time. You'll be so proud of me. I just got asked to speak in Maine to the Maine Independent Insurance Association. And I just booked 10 new clients there at $7,000 a piece. And I just hired another staff person. She's still a client. I just had to help her find a way to be happy. But what she was doing was bringing me down and everybody around me because she was miserable in the job. So surround yourself with buoyant people, not people who are going to be like an albatross around your neck. You know, your team, and this could be you with other producers, you need to engage in discussion and have input and feedback with each other. You then have to, you know, buy in to where you want to go together, hold each other accountable, and then focus on what some of those results are that you want to achieve. And if you're not getting those results, then you got to go back and tweak things. But that's what you do, whether you're in a producer group, or whether it's your own agency, or whether you work in a general agency, or you own one like I do, or whatever it is. So keep those things in mind. I know I'm kind of going fast here, but I'm going to be getting some sales ideas in a few minutes. I want you all to start thinking about becoming a master closer because that's what you get paid to do. I don't care how nice you are. If you can't convince people, if you can't find their needs, you're doing nothing for them. They don't need more friends. They need people that are going to save them from financial catastrophes. And you're the only ones that can do it. You know, when you go out and see people to try to sell them life insurance, you might be the only people those people ever sit down with and talk to. Only 40% of the people in this country own individual life insurance. And the number's going down. Now, it's a great opportunity for us that want to go after the other 60%. But if you really look at it, Limber would say that most people may only meet one time in their entire life with a financial advisor in a place of comfort to them, like in their home or in an office like that. One time. What does that mean? It means you don't have a lot of second chances with people. In order to have a relationship that's going to get them to exchange information with you, you need to build what? Rapport. And so what I want you to start studying is some of these neuro-linguistic programming techniques, which are not about manipulation, but they're about body language, mirroring and matching, all of those different things. I think you've probably all seen a little of that. It works. It's very important. But until you build rapport with people using those kind of techniques, understanding verbal versus nonverbal communication, understanding all those things, until you build that kind of rapport, you can't exchange information because there's no trust. Rapport breeds trust. Trust breeds that transfer of information back and forth. It opens up the lines of communication. And until you do that, you can't get across to them. You can't figure out what their needs really are. What's keeping them up at night? So rapport is a basic, very fundamental key to building relationships and for ultimate sales. And you can't close anything until you start with building rapport. There's a technique we use called the wedge. Has anyone heard of that? Particularly if you're in the multi-line. Randy Schwantz, who I met maybe 15 years ago when he and his partner started that. The wedge is a non-confrontational method of opening the mind of your prospect to consider the possibility of entertaining another advisor. Every time you go into a room, there's an 800-pound invisible gorilla in that room. You know who that is? The incumbent agent. Now, I will tell you, they ask you to come in that room probably because they're not sure that what they're getting for advice is good. They may not be sure that they're getting all the best ideas. So that said, when you go into that room, that person's still sitting there. Whether he or she is there or not, it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. I will tell you, with people, if you're in the life and financial services community and you're selling to somebody who does not have life or disability insurance and that's what you're marketing to them, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is what? Two things. Inertia and apathy. And until you overcome those things for people, it's very, very difficult. But that's the 800-pound gorilla. And I can talk to you at some point about using the wedge against that 800-pound gorilla of inertia and apathy. But the wedge is very, very important, and I'll give you an example of that. If I was meeting Mahesh and we were working on, let's just say a workers' comp program, I would say one of the questions I would have after we've established some rapport is, Mahesh, when John came out here and reviewed your unit stat card report that the insurance company sends in 6 months before your renewal, what were his findings? What do you think most people say when I ask them that question?
He didn't do that.
He didn't do that. What's a unit stat card? Oh, well, you know, at the O.Gaudreau Group, we believe it's one of the most important things we can do for you, because that unit stat card has the information on it the insurance company reports to the state workers' comp bureau. That determines your mod. And when we're here, the state rates are all set in every state, but that mod is key, and it's determined by your frequency and severity of losses. We find in about 1/3 of the cases that those unit stat cards are improperly reported. So the mods are improper and incorrect and often too high. Then you just shut up. Mahesh, maybe John just didn't think it was important to you. Or maybe he didn't think your business was large enough to warrant that kind of intensive analysis of the details of your workers' comp program. I'd then go into another question. That's the wedge. I didn't say that that person was bad, incompetent, uncaring, nothing. All I did is opened up the mind of the prospect to something very, very simple. Wow, maybe the guy I'm with right now or the woman I'm with right now, maybe they're not as great as they say they are. The other thing we do with any case that's going to take us a lot of work is we ask people to understand one thing. Dealing with the O.Gaudreau Group means that you're going to have to deselect your current advisor. And are you prepared to do that? Because simply, Mahesh, we're not prepared to practice quoting. I have so many good people back in my office, and you know, those people get paid very well, and they deserve it. And after 29 years in this business, I don't need practice quoting your insurance or anybody else's. So I'd ask you, we found a number of areas in which we can move forward here, and if I can do A, B, and C as you indicated, I'd like the honor of becoming your advisor. Is that something you're willing to do? Okay, Mahesh, now, you know, John's going to call you up and say, I was at your daughter's baptism 11 years ago, and you know, we went fly fishing in the river, and I'd like to prepare you for how you're going to, I'd like to know how you're going to respond to that, because these are difficult things. And this is kind of how we do it. And if they go, that's when you see them bite their lip or something, and they go, I can't do it. And that's when we go, and we back away. Because I do not have time to practice quote. Because in about 80% of those cases, you're not going to get the business. And you're much better off working on cases that have a much higher percentage of winning the case. Doesn't mean that every time in the end he's going to roll over and go, yeah, I know I said I do it and I did. But we want the verbal contract that, yes, if you can do A, B, and C, and then guess what? We go in with that presentation, what do we say? As you said in our last presentation, Mahesh, if we could do A, B, and C, and these were our results. Actually, we were able to say more than we said. We were able to find these errors, so we're going to be able to go back 3 years and get you money back on your workers' comp. And moving forward, we have 4 insurance companies that are willing to quote your account and actually give you a deviated rate. Is that something that's important to you? Great. So that said, and then we just move into the close. So do you understand? That's how the wedge works, and it's something where it saves you a lot of time and agony of when you show somebody your hard work and they just go, John, can you do the same thing? Can you get travelers on the workers' comp too? Can you get us that? And what does John say? Well, of course, I was already working on that. You know. So John scrambles around. You know, we call it dropping their pants. John scrambles around, does it. You don't get it. That's why that verbal contract is so, so important. That's first sales idea. Yes?
Are there online resources or book on that technique?
Yeah, you can just Google The Wedge, and the guy's name is Randy Schwantz. Funny name, but he's there in Florida, I think it is. And you can Google it. It's about a 90-page book. And then they have a whole series of other things that you can look at. Another thing that you want to look at, before I forget what we're talking about, just kind of an aside here, Power Sales University. Have you heard that thing on a bunch of different, radio, like on Sirius Radio? You hear this guy come on and he says, 80% of people never ask for the sale. 80% of salespeople never ask for the sale even one time. It's Power Sales University. It costs you maybe, you can get together with a group of people and buy it. It's all online. It's an amazing, amazing multimedia sales training thing. It's the best thing I've ever seen. And if you have an agency and you're trying to train other people, get them right into Module 1. It teaches them everything right from the beginning, and they have a monthly kind of update on that. That's all online. It's 24/7. It's really amazing, Power Sales University. Finally, in running your practice, stay in touch. E-newsletters, phone calls, postcards, Facebook and other social media. Very, very important. You know, we've established and we maintain a very, very broad web presence in my agency. You know, I have a large agency, so it costs me $4,200 a month to do this, but it's worth it. It helps us keep track, it keeps in touch with everybody. The whole thing with a web presence and with all that is you got to have everybody's electronic information, their emails, things like that, Facebook names, Twitter ad handles, and all those different things. But incredibly important in today's day and age. That's how you compete against 800 numbers and people advertising on TV. You don't need an agent. You don't need an advisor. Buy from here. That's how you can compete, because you can offer all those things also very, very easily and very inexpensively. So let's talk a little bit about understanding people as we get into some sales ideas here. First of all, people do things for their own reasons, not yours. What's the golden rule? Do unto others as you would have done unto you, right? Well, what's the golden rule of sales? Do unto others as they would have done unto themselves. In other words, they do things for their own reasons, not yours. You might think it's great to go and do such and such for a prospect. If they don't think it's great, guess what? It's not. So people do things for their own reasons. Don't trust prospects. Prospects usually lie. And it's not because they're bad people. And I don't care. I have prospects that are Catholic priests and ministers and everything else. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're Catholic, LDS, Protestant, Jewish, Greek Orthodox. If you're a prospect of mine, you've probably lied to me. And it's not because they're bad people. And they wouldn't call it lying. What would they call it? Prevarication. Prevarication. But what it is they're either not proud of their current decisions, or they don't want to hurt your feelings. Or they don't want to hurt their feelings. When people say to you, I'm all set, you need to say to them, before we get off the phone, can I ask you something, Mahesh? When people say to me they're all set, it usually means one of two things, that they really are all set and they don't need my advice, or I haven't given them good enough reason for them to talk to me. Which is it with you? And I'd ask them that. So they usually lie. There's an 800-pound gorilla at every presentation. The incumbent agent, apathy, or inertia. It's one of those things. Okay? You need to show value, discover, address, and eliminate any objections, and that all comes in the what do they say? The fortune is in the fact finder. So important. One other thing about people. Some will. Anybody ever heard of Jeff Locker? Yep. Jeff Locker was this amazing guy, spoke all around NAIFA, and he had these, but when he was there, he was a little bit of a huckster. God bless him, but he's dead now. He was a little bit of a huckster, but what he did is he would, after his speech, he'd go, no, I got this whole table of things over here, and he would make a ton of money on that stuff. He had a website and everything else, and about 3 years ago, they found the poor guy dead. He was stabbed in the chest by a hooker in a really bad section of like New York City. And it was really kind of this, when it happened, everybody was like, oh my God, they held this guy up on the pedestal, and he was so perfect and so great, and always talked about his family and all these other stuff, and then this happens. It was really kind of weird, Of course, that was very much hushed up, but, and as I said before, don't get emotionally tied to their yeses or nos. Don't get emotionally tied to people's yeses or nos. Hold yourself accountable to those things that you can control, like making those calls, being prepared to give your best presentation, and making the ask, whether it's for the sale or for referrals. Hold yourself accountable to those things. Tie yourself to those things. Make those things your beachhead. Not whether or not they say yes or no. You often can't control that. What you can control is your own effort, your own activity. Make that your beachhead. And then once you've accomplished that, Pick a bigger one. Maybe it's a bigger market, a bigger type client, a different niche, but that's what you need to do. Some sales ideas. Absolutely must use this as an agenda at every single meeting and have referrals, or whom else can you think of that we can help as an item, or names of people that you want to use as targeted referrals. If I go and talk to a guy who owns a lumber yard, I'm going to go in and say, Mike, I know boom, boom, and boom, and I need an introduction. I'm not going to ask him who he knows, because he's going to say, I'll figure it out and I'll call you back. When he says, yeah, I'd love to give you an introduction to those people, I'm going to first confirm value with him that everything's going great and you love me and all that stuff. Would you be willing to recommend me to other people if they ask you? Oh, God, yes, absolutely, Jules. Great. Well, here's a few people that I know you know. How do I know he knows? Look in the websites. You'll see them. Look at LinkedIn, Facebook for their lumberyard. You'll see all the other people. So I know you know John Smith that owns that large home construction company. And I've always been wanting to meet John. He seems like a great guy, and I know you're very friendly with him. Would you be willing to if he asked you, should I do insurance with Jules, what would you say? Oh, I'd say Jules is the best thing since sliced bread. He gave me all kinds of great ideas. You know, Mike, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a little paragraph that I'm going to email you today. I'd like you to cut and paste that to Mary at the bank. And then, will you send that out this week? Yeah, good, because I'm going to call Mary, say, on Monday, and just see if she got your email. And what that email is going to be is a testimonial right from Michael to Mary, or right from Michael to John. And it's so much more powerful, because they're not going to open up my email. If I say, hey, if they see Jules Gaudreau, they're probably not going to open it, or it'll end up in the 984 things that are in their inbox that they'll check out some other day, So very, very important, targeted referrals. Ask people if they say they're all set. Say, let me ask you something before we go. If we were to do a fire drill right now in your life, what would the results of that be? What do you mean? You know how you're a kid and they did a fire drill? Why'd they do that? To make sure that you were prepared if there was a fire in the building so people didn't get what? Didn't die, didn't get hurt. I'm worried about you financially having a devastating thing, life insurance, disability, whatever those things are, premature death, living too long. You sure you're all set with that stuff? So what would happen right now? What would your wife do right now? What would your husband do right now if you got killed on the way home from work? What would you do? What's the first thing you would do? I promise you, lawyers and doctors are the least prepared for any of this stuff. The least prepared. So, use that thing. Let's do a fire drill. It's and you got to word it any way you want, but the fire drill concept is very important because everybody remembers it from grade school. All standing in line doing a little fire drill. Preparedness. When anybody has something, I hear about things when I congratulate them. I heard about your new grandson. Should we be talking about more life insurance for you, or maybe for your daughter? Or how about on that new grandson? I just shut my mouth. I just say it like that. I don't have any fancy thing or anything else. If somebody has another child, I'll say, should we be talking about more disability insurance? I want them to say, no, we shouldn't be. And they usually don't. They usually kind of go, yeah, probably. And I go, I know you're busy now, but how about if I call you in a couple weeks? Why don't I do that? And, let's have a cup of coffee and talk about it. This is simple stuff, folks. But you need to just have something that engenders in them something like, yeah, I probably should. Big mistakes versus small mistakes. If people can't afford the premium, how are they ever going to afford to solve that huge dilemma when there's a premature death, a disability before retirement, or when they don't have enough money at the end of the month? If they can't afford the premium now, how are they going to take care of their family that's going to need millions of dollars later? And so this concept of talking to people about big mistakes versus small mistakes is extremely important. Using third-party influences. Did you ever have Tom Hegna here? Yes. Tom gives some amazing things about annuities. Some amazing things. I'll give you one really neat thing about annuities, and it's all public information. Who's one of the smartest guys in Washington, whether you like him as a Fed chair or not? Ben Bernanke. It's public information that he owns mostly annuities. Why aren't you telling people about that? Any lawyer says to you, or anybody that says they don't like annuities, say, oh, I think one of the smartest guys in the country is Ben Bernanke. He supposedly is his genius in the world financial markets and everything else. He's got annuities. Ben Stein, who was head of the Yale Law Review or something, economics degree from Yale, and then he was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Bueller. I mean, Ben Stein it just gives an unbelievable thing about annuities. How it's such a good deal that the insurance companies, as many have, are going to have to stop giving the guarantees that they currently give on new business. Pretty amazing. Use third-party influences. Van Miller, his whole darn presentation is, right? You ever seen that? He slaps down a little thing from the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, whatever, the Las Vegas Sentinel, whatever the newspaper is out here, and he just slaps down all that stuff. Trade publication stuff from the publication that the doctor or lawyer might belong to, right from their trade publication. I mean, so third-party influence is very, very important. Always give options in your presentations. Don't just show one thing. Show 2 or 3. 3 is usually the best thing, but you got to show 3, I think, options to people. So it's not a yes or no. It's an A or B or C decision. Disability, selling the benefit, not the premium, not the monthly benefit, but selling the millions of dollars they potentially could get prior to age 65. Extremely, extremely important. Ask people, if you were hit by a drunken driver tonight, what would your husband sue that drunken driver for? When people say they have enough life insurance, they're woefully, woefully mistaken. They usually have woefully inadequate life insurance. Ask them what they would sue for. What do you think they say? Oh, $10 million. Why don't you have $10 million of life insurance? So some bum hits your wife, hits your husband. You're going to want $10 million from them, but you have the ability to buy that now. Speaking of which, buy in bulk. If somebody's buying life insurance and they buy whole life, I'll sell them another $1 million of term insurance because it's cheap, which can be converted later. If somebody wants $1 million of whole term insurance, I'll try to sell them $2 million because it's so inexpensive. Just say to them, did you think $1 million was a lot 20 years ago? They'll go, yes. Do you think it's a lot now? They'll go, not really. Probably keep my family the way they are for 10 years or something. Then why wouldn't you just buy $2 million? It's only another $1,000 a year or $1,500 a year. Maybe they won't buy that. Maybe they'll buy another $500,000 though. You're doing what's right for them. Again, if you can't afford the premium, how will you and your family bear the burden of a death or disability? Creating a web presence and maintaining fresh content. Get people to like and talk about you, follow you. I'm not so great about that follow me on Twitter thing yet. I feel kind of weird, like I'm not a celebrity. I think that's kind of a celebrity thing. But who really wants their insurance agent going, hey, have you seen this? I don't know, but I don't know. They want to hear Kim Kardashian talk about her new bikini or something, not me talking about this new idea I have in life insurance. I don't know, but it's not something I'm really good at yet. Facebook, we've done a much better job on, and some of those other things, and LinkedIn. Always be prospecting and take every chance to sell, cross-sell, and upsell. Always be prospecting. Take every chance to sell, cross-sell, and upsell. What we have in our agency is people say things like, you know, before I let you off the phone, I noticed that we don't currently write an umbrella liability policy for you. May I ask why? It's that simple. May I ask why? And then just shut up. This is not complicated stuff. Talked to you about targeted referrals already. I'm going to conclude some sales ideas with one thing that I call community breeds immunity, and that's by getting involved, helping your clients and prospects in small and large ways. They will be forever grateful. I had this client whose wife, they own a large tree service, 80 trucks, giant account. And I was talking to this guy, I said, how's Tess doing? She's upset, you know, she can't get anybody to help her on this pancake breakfast. These people could have bought the thing for the 400 people they wanted to go. They're so wealthy. And I said, well, what's going on? So guess what I did? I got involved. I took 3 or 4 staff members. They showed up that Sunday morning to help her. We sold a ton of tickets to it. How do you think she felt? You see, because as wealthy as these people were, she was looking at falling flat on her face in front of our community of 12,000 people. I have like a lifetime bond with this woman and her family as a result, and a $100,000 a year employee benefit account because of that. So I've had that account 10 years, so I've made $1 million. I think we bought $200 of tickets, and we got a bunch of our friends to buy tables for $100 or something like that. It really wasn't that hard. But you might not be able to afford a foursome in a golf tournament. I promise you, you could take one of your staff members and you could go work the registration table. People love you for that kind of stuff. So whether it's Chamber of Commerce, Rotary, you know, your churches or synagogues, whatever it is, temples, I mean, do whatever it is. Find something, people will be forever grateful. So community breeds immunity. One thing that it's done for me in my area of the world, in my space, is by being a leader in NAIFA, most people have stayed away from what I do because they've seen me speak, they know I'm a competent advisor. So when they see my clients, they go, you got Jules, you have the O.Gaudreau group, you're all set, aren't you? People usually go, Yeah. And I have clients tell me, I just met with Dana Barrows, and when he heard that you were my agent, and Dana's a huge Northwest Mutual agent, and Dana said that, I had the second best agent after him. But I mean, and you should stay with him. So community breeds immunity. I told you the only reason I'm here giving 2 days of my life, besides coming to a great place like Las Vegas and meet really a wonderful group of people, to give ideas to people that I really don't know, is because we share a common bond, NAIFA. And NAIFA promotes ethical conduct, helps you build your business, and most importantly, helps you in the political realm to protect your business. NAIFA is there every single day. We're fighting for a revised standard on the fiduciary duty so that people who work and only sell one product, if you're a captive agent, for instance, if you work for a career agency company like MassMutual or The Guardian or say Northwestern or whatever, New York Life, that you're exempt from that requirement because you might only be able to sell their product. And as long as you disclose to your client that that's what you sell, we fought very hard for that exemption. And there are so many other things that NAIFA does every single day. In 1913, when the tax code was created, we sat there as NALU at that time. We helped Woodrow Wilson's first Treasury Secretary grant all these tax loopholes to the life insurance industry. Non-taxation of the inside buildup, non-taxation of death benefit to a named beneficiary, all those different things, non-taxation of dividends, preferred tax treatment of policy loans, all those different things. We prevailed on the powers that be in Washington and in many state capitals because there is a public interest in people buying insurance, isn't there? In an age, what age is it? It's always been an age of government having finite resources. We need to encourage people to take care of themselves and not rely on handouts. And that's been our message for since NALU, now NAIFA, was founded in Boston, Massachusetts at the Parker House Hotel 122 years ago last February. That's been our message. So whether you know it or not, you have a team of lawyers in Washington protecting you. And that's the reason I'm here. It's the only reason I'm here. If you were just a group of people and you just wanted me to come and speak sales, it would cost you a few $1,000s and things like that. And I probably would have a little bit better material too. But no, I won't. I know I'm going through this fast, but I would have 2 hours in a situation like that, or maybe a whole day. So your 90-day action plan, and I'm going to wrap things up here. I'm just about on time. And it won't be easy. I talked to you before, but shaping the world around you to fit your dreams should be hard. It should be hard. Successful people do what unsuccessful people are simply unwilling to do. So let's talk about a few things I think you can do. First of all, if you've ever read Stephen Covey's book, I've read it 7 or 8 times, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Extremely important reading. Boring as all get out when you first read it, and kind of technical. He's a college professor, so he took leadership thoughts from 200, 2,000 years and put them into a book, and he actually has like some calculus with it or something, but in graphs and easels and numbers and everything. But it's really great, and the more you read it, the more you get out of it. And so read some of these leadership things, but one thing in particular, Stephen Covey talks about the 4 quadrants that we can tend to separate things that are either urgent or important. And that what we work on most are things that are important and urgent all the time, but what we don't work on enough is what's important but not urgent. And what are a few of those things? I'll give you one, planning. Very, very important, but never urgent. If you don't plan your schedule next week, it's not going to be urgent until you go broke, and then it gets really urgent. But it's important but not urgent. What's another one that we all should be doing more of every day? Exercising. If you don't get on a treadmill today, lift weights, do resistance training, go for a walk, moderate your alcohol intake, stop smoking. If you don't do that, I promise you, you're not going to die tomorrow, are you? So it's not urgent until you have that half a heart attack. So you want the full heart attack where you're dead. You don't want the half a heart attack, because then you're coming to people like Mahesh going, how come you didn't convince me to buy $15,000 a month of disability and I only have 12? So you want the full heart attack. But the fact is that exercise doesn't become important and urgent until you're at that doctor and they tell you that. And we're all going to get there, some of us later than others, okay? What are some other things that you can do? Professional development. I talked about competency. Spending some time. Very, very important. So break down the next 90 days into, you've seen this before from Wayne Cotton and a number of other people, into red, yellow, blue, green days, and don't mix them. Red is red tape days. Great for a Friday. Get all your work done on Friday morning and reward yourself by leaving early if you can. Go golfing, swimming, boating, hunting, whatever it is, fishing, whatever it is that you go get a massage. Reward yourself when the work is done. Yellow days are mellow yellow. Those are your vacation days. If you look in your calendar for the next 3 months and you don't have any vacation this summer, there's something wrong with you. You really got to do that. When are you spending time with your families or your friends? So if you're just taking time off as catch can, I promise you, you're not going to sharpen your saw and you're not going to be that good those other days. So look at those mellow yellow days. Blue sky days, those are those quadrant 2 days. That's when you're planning, you're thinking, you're imagining, you're innovating. Have some of those days in your calendar. That's what today's meeting is about. It's kind of a blue sky meeting. I hope you see it as that, not a red tape meeting because you're forced to come here or something. But and then finally, green or go days. And if you look at your calendar and you don't see a lot of those green days, you're in trouble. I've gone through this with new producers in my agency, advisors in my agency that I'm mentoring and things like that. And it's hard to understand how my practice works, but we take cases depending upon the size of the case and we assign them to people. So my job is to drive business to the door and then assign it to people in all ways. And what we'll do is look at their green days and go, my God, do you really see what you have over the next 12 weeks? You got like 24 green days. How much red tape can you have? I mean, you're 23 years old, Linda. I mean, you got 4 weeks off. What are you thinking? But if you look at the typical advisor, you look at 365 days a year, you'll be amazed how little work is actually done. How many little green days there are in there. So very, very important. And don't mix them, because when you mix them, what happens is the red tape slips into the green. You stop making phone calls because you convince yourself there's something, I got to get that application done. I got to get that proposal done. You convince yourself it's more important than replenishing your inventory of active prospects. Okay, so don't mix them. Don't mix, for instance, your vacation. And I know this is hard, but don't mix your vacation with your family, with work. I lost my family because of that. I lost the love of my life because of that. Don't do that. It's a mistake. I'm friends with my former wife. We recently got divorced after not being with each other for years. And we're best friends. And my kids are good with me, and they're good with my new relationship and everything. But I blew it. And I didn't want to make money. It wasn't about making more money. It was about more deals. I had to have more deals. I don't know what it was. But I mixed time we were away. I would be in Europe, and I had to buy a phone so that people could get in touch with me. I'm so important. None of us is that important that we should be spending vacation time on the phone. None of us is. Okay? So try not to mix them. Study at least an hour per day, whether it's insurance, management, sales skills, sales techniques, sales ideas, whatever. Study an hour a day. It's a really good thing, particularly if you want to stretch into other markets. If you're going to go into, say, the lumberyard market, study what lumberyards are about. What are they doing? What are modern lumberyards doing in terms of all the different things? How are they structured? Study those things. I promise you it's all available online, an hour a day. Create a 5 before 11 list. You may have heard this from other NAIFA speakers, but it's very effective. Create 5 things that you need to get done that day and get them done by 11 o'clock. It is, I tell you what, it makes you just feel euphoric. 5 before 11 list. Really important, bring order and discipline to your own financial house. You got to buy this stuff in order. You got to be convinced that this is the right thing for other people to buy before you can be convincing to them to buy it. Wouldn't you agree? So I have a large amount of whole life insurance, and I have a large amount of term insurance. I have some UL. I have as much DI as they'll possibly sell me. I could probably go to an excess market like Lloyd's or one of these other people and get excess DI coverage, and I probably should do that. But I'm a real believer in it. So long-term care. I own long-term care. I'm 51 years old. Buy this stuff, and you become much more convincing to your prospects. But get your own financial house in order. Spend at least 90 minutes a day, particularly if you're young, on the phone calling people. I don't care if you're prospecting for new people or calling your clients, asking for referrals or thanking them or seeing how they're doing. But you got to be on the phone. That's, again, what you get paid to do. Again, this is for the next 90 days. Innovate and develop your unique value proposition. If I came here 90 days from now and said, hi, Mahesh. I keep saying Mahesh because he's one of the 6 people in the room I know. Or if I said, hi, David. You know, when we talked 90 days ago when I was coaching you, we talked about your unique value proposition. So tell me how you're different. Tell me how you can bring value to me if I was one of your prospects. Tell me how you can make my life easier, better, more convenient, more enriched, more fulfilling, how you can make me maybe a better parent because you'll take this burden off of me, better at work because I'm able to focus better, because I feel like I'm improving my finances. But you tell me. You tell me how you can give me more peace of mind so that I can focus on the important people and events in my life. And then finally, create a playbook for each product, service, or program you offer. A playbook. Outline how the features of your product or service or program benefits the client. We all sell features. We need to sell the benefits to the clients. And sometimes the same features offer different benefits to different clients. You can anticipate and address any objections in your playbook. That's the thing. I mean, you think if you're selling, for instance, a pension plan to a business owner, Joe Blow dry cleaner, that you don't think when you're talking to them that the objections they're going to have are the same as anybody else? Can I afford it? How much paperwork is it? Oh, that reporting's expensive, isn't it? Don't you think you can address that in your presentation? You can anticipate all those objections and uncover all those objections so that the close is just kind of a continuation of the process where you don't even ask about getting the check or the sale. You just talk about next steps and positioning them for that. Okay? So create a playbook for each product, service, or program you offer. Very, very important. It also means, ad libs are for amateurs. It means that somebody could call you, you could go see them this afternoon and grab that playbook out, or open up that playbook that's on your iPad or your smartphone or whatever, and you could go right from there. So have that ready to go, including the fact finders and anything else you're going to need so you can do it once and done and be more effective with them. In the Lilly class, Leadership and Life Institute class of NAIFA, you're taught to follow this idea of creating a eulogy where you say, if you were to die 50 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever, what would it say about you? It gives you a really, really good idea of who you want to become, and that's how you can begin with the end in mind. And when you do that, it's seldom about money. When you read people's eulogies, I'm top of the table and all that stuff. Mine won't say he was a consistent top-of-the-table qualifier, because the people who read it, most of them are not going to be in the insurance business. They're going to be friends and family members, people in my area. And to them, my industry accomplishments didn't mean as much as my accomplishments in helping them, right? And in my community. So you decide. If you were to write, forget writing your eulogy, how about if you're living and you write your autobiography? What would it say? What would you tell people about? Where have you been? Where are you going? How can that help them? Your autobiography. So start creating today the world that you want to live in tomorrow. It's the best time to be in our business. There are more people in the United States today without the products that you have, and there are more people of those that need the products desperately. Limerick in surveying America found that they all want to meet you. It's very common. The majority of Americans who don't have insurance say, I'd like to talk to somebody, but no one's called me. Let's fix that. Let's fix that. Your products are remarkable. They're even miraculous, I think. They're even miraculous. Sharon was a friend of mine, and she had a child, and I said, shouldn't we be talking about more life insurance? And she said, Dennis, he runs a big medical thing. I don't think we need it. And I said, you'd be amazed. So she said, could I buy anything for like $40 a month? And at the time, I sold her a Guardian term insurance policy because I thought I'd convert it. She got cancer a year later, died 5 years after that, when her little girl was 5 years old, 6 years old. And that $300-something thousand for that $40 a month sent their two oldest kids to college, and that little girl is now 17 years old. And every time I see those kids, I can't believe that for $40 a month, say $500 a year for about 6 years she paid. And they were sometimes gone for 3 weeks for some experimental cancer thing, and their insurance would come up, and I would make sure that there was no way that insurance got canceled. But they paid like $3,000 and got a check for $375,000. And when he sat in front of me, he said, what do I do? And I said, nothing. The check is already in the mail. I just can't give it to you. It's in a bank book on State Street Bank in New York, and it's in the amount of $375,000, and I just can't hand it to you until I get the death certificate. And he started to cry, and he said, I didn't even know if she had still kept those premiums paid, because she handled everything. Jules, I can't even find the checkbook. And I said, well, there's going to be one here tomorrow with $375,000 in it, so you might not have to worry about finding that book. And we cried together. He's one of my closest friends. And I often marvel at the miracle of leveraging that small amount of money, and you wonder, I mean, he said, just like that? I go, yeah, just like that. How much are the taxes on that? I said, nothing. You think he's a proponent of mine, of what I do? He's an apostle of mine and of our business. You know, it's a miracle how the ability of our products to leverage small amounts of money to solve these large potential disasters. So when you go out there, remember, a lot of people might not ever see anybody else. You know, the 800-pound gorilla in their room is inertia and apathy and lack of understanding. So, you know, represent us well, make us proud, do the right thing for people, and good luck.